Howdy, Possum Patty here. It's April 19th and I'm nature journaling. What did nature give you today? Well, this morning, nature gave me sparkles and glitter. I looked out the window this morning and saw frost. The thermometer said 33 degrees. I decided to put on my winter coat and hat and go out on an adventure. I didn't want to let all that sparkly goodness go to waste, so I went on a frosty hunt. I looked at the grass and the leaves and all new growth and the picnic table and objects and tree shadows and behind rocks and even moss. Yesterday morning we woke up to some snow, but the temperatures were warmer. Last night, no clouds, no wind caused the temperatures to drop, and now we have a frosty morn. Frost on the table. As you can see, we have very still air today. That windmill's not even moving. And just a very, very thin film of ice on the puddle. Like a saran wrap. Very, very thin coat of ice. Frost on the moss. The sun has been up for a little while now, and you can already see that in the shadow of this birch tree, the frost is still there, but it's already melted here, but it's still over here. So I don't think this frost is going to last very long. When I came inside, I drew a leaf and I put some shimmering Daniel Smith watercolor on it to make it sparkle. I also drew the rain gauge from yesterday because yesterday we had 2 or 3 inches of slushy snow and almost an inch of liquid in the rain gauge. But the day got warmer and warmer and the sun was shining, so I decided to go on another adventure after lunch. I headed out in a direction past the woodpile where I was looking for turkey tails the other day. And I followed some old tracks in the woods. Going a little deeper into the woods today. This is where I saw the frog last year. The first thing that caught my eye was this tree. Its roots were on a rock, but it was laying down. I think it must have got blown over or knocked over, and then it started to grow upright again. At the junction, there was an old branch that had come off. Now that looks unusual. Let's check that out. Looks like the roots of that tree were on that rock, and then somehow it got pushed over or fallen over, and then it started growing upright again. Looks like there might have been a branch there it lost, and now it's going up straight. This is called gravitropism. When a growing plant goes against gravity to grow up, that's called negative gravitropism. When the roots of a plant grow down into the ground, that's called positive gravitropism, because it's going with the gravity and not against it. Right at the base, where the roots are in the trunk, is a new tree growing straight up. The other thing I noticed was this little sucker coming up. It was like a whole new tree growing out of the trunk of this tree that was laying down. I had seen this before in the woods. When one tree gets knocked over, another one starts sprouting out of the trunk. But it was such a beautiful day, I kept walking. I started feeling like Lewis and Clark, or maybe just Lewis, or maybe just Clark. You know what I mean. But I had quite the adventure. I followed the track some more, and I came to this tree that had a lot of that Frulandia liverwort growing on it. So I stopped and took a picture of that and noted it in my journal so I could sketch it. There's some of that Frulandia growing on this tree way all the way up to the top. High and dry Frulandia, the exceptional, outstanding liverwort. When I got to the rock, I noticed that it was split. It also had a little sapling growing out of a crack in the rock, and some moss growing on it, and some lichens. And around the rock, there were some shinleaf or pyrolia plants growing. I stepped back to this tree to sketch this rock, and I was leaning up against a tree. And I just happened to look down at the ground, and I noticed all these wood chips. So I stepped back and looked up on the other side of that tree. And there's some big holes. And I'm judging by the size of these wood shavings down here that maybe this is a pileated woodpecker. Certainly not a downy or a hairy, maybe not even the red belly. To continue my adventure, I looked off to my right and saw a stake with a pink flag on it, so I headed over there to see what was growing underneath. I walked out to the rock, and there's some shinleaf or pyrola growing there. And then I looked to my right and noticed a stick with a pink flag, so I'm going to go check that out. I wonder what that stick's marking. From here I don't see anything. I moved aside some old dead leaves and found a Christmas fern. Christmas ferns are evergreen. They stay green all winter, so there were some fully formed leaves, nice and green in the sun. From this flag, I saw a blue flag which marks a wetland area. So I walked over towards the blue ribbon, and that's where our spring seep is. I stood there and watched the spring seep for a while. It was running quite freely, and there were a pile of old dead leaves creating little dams, and the water was running over the little dams like miniature waterfalls. It was quite beautiful. Now that blue flag marks wetlands, And in the spring, you can see how wet it is. This is a spring seep. When the water table is very high, this runs. Later on in the year, it dries out though. Then I noticed my husband coming down the road in his truck, and he stopped because he saw me. So I started to walk over to the road, and I almost stepped on a snake. It raised its head and hissed and flicked its tongue out at me. So of course I stopped to take a picture of it and note that in my journal too. When I came inside, I looked at my pencil sketches, went over them in some black ink with a micron pen because these are waterproof, and then I added some watercolors. But this was quite the adventure today. I started off with sparkle and sunshine. I looked at silly trees, a split rock, pilated woodpecker holes, a sparkling spring seep, and a slithering snake. What gifts did nature give you today? Thanks for coming along. Bye-bye.